say goodbye to Music Row. Now, I left Nashville, but when I returned from off the road, I think it was 2013, 2014, I started noticing a lot of changes in Nashville. And I started noticing, I started getting notices in the mail. People wanting to buy my little shed of a house that I had at the time. And I started noticing cranes all around the city, and I started noticing the growth. And was completely unaware of what was going on because I had been on the road and I'd been out there in La La Land on that tour bus, and it, just grinding away. So much so that when I came home, I very rarely got to see much of Nashville. And so I wasn't aware of what was going on until I could stop and get off the merry-go-round and take a look at what was happening to the city. And the first thing that I was able to do was cash out of the house that I was in and get into a better neighborhood. And that meant moving a little bit farther out from the city. Now, whether that was a good decision or not, I think for my mental health at the time, I think it was. There's just something about, living in a bad environment, where, you're just wondering if you're going to get jumped when you walk out of your house or not. That was the move I needed to make at the time. And I was able to make some money doing that. So I was very thankful that I had bought a house and was able to make that move. But I started noticing places iconic places like the Fiddle and Steel, which was in Printer's Alley. That was a locals hang, right? You always had Broadway, which attracted the tourists. And you have Printer's Alley, which is a different scene. And, Fiddle and Steel was not a place that I went a lot because I'm not a huge country music fan. But I did play there once. I did a country showcase there. And I occasionally would pop in there and have a beer, and listen to the country music. And they were always very friendly there. And there was a songwriter who had written country hits, right? But he was running a window out of the Fiddle and Steel where he would make, hamburgers and hot dogs and food for the people that had, worked. You get something to eat in Printer's Alley. And so often when I would play Bourbon Street Blues Bar, at the end of the night to try to sober up for to get home, I would get a burger from the little window at Fiddle and Steel. And I at the time had no idea. Now, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he was a previously successful songwriter with several cuts that was now, serving up hamburgers because the industry changes, tastes change, and 1 minute you're hot and 1 minute you're not. That's just kind of the way the ball bounces. Just like I had, gone from playing, in arenas and, occasionally a football stadium. And now I was back to playing in Bourbon Street Blues Bar and BB King's and all those other places. So, things change, life changes. But Nashville at that time was going through a huge change, and the popularity of the country artists, the huge country artists like Jason Aldean and Luke Bryan and of course Kenny Chesney kind of before that. I mean, he became a stadium act pretty quickly. And so the explosion of country music has, made Nashville kind of boom. And, the seeming country lifestyle of whiskey and beer and, all the things that it promotes in the pickup trucks, all those people that buy pickup trucks, would put the country music channel on because the music was speaking to them. But Nashville was headed for huge growth, a huge growth spurt. And it was evident by, at times, I would count, 10 or 12 cranes in the sky. And when I talked to people, in the construction business, they said you would have to wait months to get a crane, to even get one, because the demand for all the high rise and all the construction and all the growth that was going on, you couldn't even get one for several months. So, there's one thing, if you're living in a city like that that's exploding, your property values gain a lot. But, if you're going to get something else, you end up having to move out further and further from the city. But soon, with this growth, that iconic bar, Fiddle and Steel, was to be gone and turned into a high-rise hotel with a little retail on the bottom. And the vibe of Printer's Alley, which is an iconic location in Nashville, was changing. Now, you still got Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar there, and a couple other spots, but man, some of those legendary spots were gone. And I started also noticing that Music Row itself was changing. Some of the studios were being, potentially, they were at one time talking about RCA studios being gone. And that's an iconic studio where Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton and, all the legends had recorded at. So I started noticing that this trend, and that the city wasn't respecting its past and wasn't taking steps to preserve Music Row and some of the iconic places in town. So I wrote a song at the time called Goodbye Music Row. Now I'm going to put a link in the description. This is not a shreddy guitar song. This is a singer-songwriter song talking about the changes that Music City was going through and now are continuing to go through. I'll put a link to the song in the description. It's fitting, and it's even more fitting today because the news has come out that an iconic recording studio, Omni Sound, has been demolished. The wrecking ball has come down and taking another of our iconic studios in town. Now, the trend continues because the property values are so high that the music industry has changed. People are recording songs on their laptops. They're not using the thing. AI is coming. Perhaps one day studio musicians will be super rare, okay? So, I see this now. I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, that I had any experience in Omni Sound. My favorite studio, down there is Ronnie's place. It's the old studio that Ronnie Millsap built. And that's where I have the most experience playing there. And I would be really, really sad if that's gone because I always enjoyed tracking in that studio. Now, there's other studios cropping up in other areas of town, but Music Row is an iconic location. I can remember getting to Nashville and driving down, and the first time I'd driven down Broadway, I was extremely disappointed because it was not the boom town in 1994 that it is now. If if I'd have driven there, and it was like it is now, I would have been excited and thinking, oh, it's going to be one big party. But back in 1994, man, Broadway was not really a happening place. But then, in 1994, when I drove down to Music Row and I saw the recording studios and I saw the record labels and I saw all the signs, all the record labels back then would put these signs in their front yard, 3 #1 hits, congratulations to blah, 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 and, congratulations to this artist and congratulations to this songwriter with this publishing company. And this whole music industry that was based on Music Row. Now, Music Row is changing. There's less label presence there. And now, one last studio on Music Row, Omni Sound. Rest in peace, Omni Sound. But may Music Row continue to live on. Meanwhile, I've said my final goodbye to Music Row.